The bill for consideration now, Mr. Speaker, is a banking amendment bill, and the bill seeks to provide for the enhancement of the regulation and supervision of banking business, the establishment of a single banking space, the ownership structures for licensed financial institutions and licensed financial holding companies, the corporate governance of licensed financial institutions, the framework for the official administration of licensed financial institutions, and for incidental and other related matters, Mr. Speaker. The amendment is legislation will facilitate the further advancement of the harmonization of the banking sector in Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, which will in turn supplement the strengthening of the legal framework for the conduct of banking business and a regulatory environment that is enhanced, Mr. Speaker. The amendments being proposed to the Banking Act have come from the reviews conducted by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank with the intention to update the Act, making it easier to understand, improving the language and various sections, and improving the accuracy of the Act by way of definition. Among these amendments, Mr. Speaker, include the strengthening of penalties to improve enforcement for the provision of clarification that a specified penalty applies to a corporation and not a financial institution. Also, that the ECCB may appoint a receiver with respect to a person who carries on banking business without a license, Mr. Speaker. The bill amends Section 44 of the Act to specify that a licensed financial institution must maintain a minimum paid-up or assigned capital in the currency union and not only in St. Lucia. A new subsection 5 is included to empower the ECB to approve the holding of assigned capital in the form of specified assets. Section 45 is amended to insert two new practices which a licensed financial institution or licensed financial holding company should not engage or maintain the reserve fund under subsection 2. Also, new subsections 3 and 4 and 5 are inserted, which provide that a licensed financial institution or licensed financial holding company shall not declare or make a transfer from its profits as it realizes, and if it realizes a net loss for a financial year, unless it obtains the prior written approval of the central bank within the specified timetable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is part of the ECCU harmonized legislation, and as a member, St. Lucia is required to enact these amendments. Mr. Speaker, the several clauses, Mr. Speaker, of the original act has been amended, Mr. Speaker, and I outlined the main ones, Mr. Speaker. But basically, our issue is we are a member of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Mr. Speaker, and the Monetary Union, and there is a series of harmonized laws and regulations that we are almost forced to pass if we are to maintain our membership, or if we are to maintain the harmonized regime as it relates to the currency union, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, having said so, I know there are some concerns about the business of banking in St. Lucia, particularly as it relates to the setting up of accounts, Mr. Speaker. It is more difficult to open up a bank account in St. Lucia than most places in the world, Mr. Speaker. And even if we understand that there is need for know your customer and for due diligence, Mr. Speaker, we need to be a lot more flexible as far as that's concerned, because we can't be wanting to encourage savings at the same time. Whilst you encourage savings, you make it so difficult to open bank accounts, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we have been dragged to make these amendments to the Banking Act because of our membership in the Eastern Caribbean Monetary Union, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask members to support these amendments. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this has been a very interesting debate, Mr. Speaker. And incidentally, next week I become chairman of the Monetary Authority. Mr. Speaker, you see, The central bank is being governed by an act that was created many years ago. I think 46 years ago, 47 years ago, 1983. Yeah. I mean, because the central bank is consumed with the value of the EC dollar. That stability, all what they do is aimed at keeping the EC dollar at a level of stability. The EC dollar, Mr. Speaker, is one of the strongest currencies in the world. It is backed 96% by US dollars. One of the strongest currencies in the world, and all the ministers of finance in this honorable house know that, Mr. Speaker. And the problem with the central bank is that in its quest to maintain stability, it has become rigid. There's a slew of legislation that they need us to pass. The credit reporting bill, which in the last government we had a joint committee on, and we had a discussion with them via Zoom. The credit reporting bill, Mr. Speaker. A lot of legislation. Part of that harmonization. The other part, where the central bank wants to maintain that stability of the dollar, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, all development must center around people, Mr. Speaker. People must benefit. And it's okay for us to have the strongest currency in the world, which is good. We are supportive of that, Mr. Speaker. But we have to see about our people, Mr. Speaker. And the corresponding banking factor that many frustrators speaks of is a very serious issue, and this is one of the topics that are going to be discussed with the committees that have been formed at the Summit of America, the corresponding banking issues, because it is difficult. There is one country in the Caribbean, in CARICOM, when they lost their correspondent banking, they had to carry plane rows of cash in a helicopter to go. They had to actually take the plane full of cash and take it to the US and pay with cash because they lost their correspondent banking arrangements. Very serious issues, and this is one of the things that we want to discuss with the US Treasury Department. Mr. Speaker, every day they are after us to pass new legislation. We go into this Citizens by Investment program. They find all sorts of things with our program, Mr. Speaker. Whereas the United States is one of the biggest, in the city of Delaware, is one of the biggest CIP regimes in the world, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the developmental trajectory of our region is difficult to follow because it seems, and last week or week before last, I was speaking to the executive director of the International Monetary Fund. We had a meeting with her in Barbados. And I was saying to her, sometimes in that region, we feel tired. We went into bananas, the WTO dealt with us. We go into tourism, sometimes they take us and they say that we are crime. We have crime, and then we have problems. We go into financial services, they say we are laundering money. Every path that we try, there seems to be some impediment from somewhere or the other, Mr. Speaker. What are we to do in these small islands? What are we to do, Mr. Speaker? So all the concerns that have been raised by the former Prime Minister, the member for Beaufort South, and he and I have agreed on many of these things. The foreclosure legislation. I mean, you can lose your house, and then I remember in a cabinet, one of the cabinet meetings we had, and we said that, I mean, it's impossible for you to be able to take a man's house like his car. You understand? See somebody's house as if it's a car. Just go and take the car and go with it, Mr. Speaker. So these, and you remember that? So these concerns are real, Mr. Speaker. So I want to suggest that because of the concerns that have been raised in this honorable house, that we form a joint committee of this honorable house to discuss these amendments and to discuss what approach we can take on the issues raised by the member for Beaufort South. And if it's amenable, I will consult the speaker to consult the opposition to decide how we can move forward with that committee to deal with the situation as it regards this act and the banking situation generally, not with a view to create issues, because as PEP, we have enough issues, Mr. Speaker. I mean, and my friend from Beaufort South, Mr. Speaker, is right, because, I mean, let me give you an example about how it is to be a PEP, Mr. Speaker. When you're a PEP, you spoke about insurance, Mr. Speaker. But when you're a PEP and your daughter goes to open a bank account or to for credit card and they tell her who your father is, and it's almost like she's a criminal, yeah. I mean, and she says, Daddy, what have I done? You understand? Because she's a PEP. Don't ask for your spouse. What's it? Mr. Speaker, so these things we have to discuss, but you must understand that the fundamental issue is that when you're small, you're under pressure, and you can always hang the big stick over you as it relates to corresponding banking, and that is what they keep on you all the time, Mr. Speaker. And it is very difficult to explain to people, to tell them that you'll have to take a plane full of US dollars and go and pay it in America, which has happened in the region. So, Mr. Speaker, if the House is in agreement, I will ask for an adjournment now, and then with you, Mr. Speaker, we'll form a joint committee to discuss this bill, this amendment, and also to discuss the issues that were raised in this honorable House today. If Mr. Speaker, if you so oblige.